Have you ever looked at a harder goal and thought, am I actually ready for this?
Here's the problem. Most people don't fail because the mountain is too hard. They fail because they go too big, too soon.
The real danger in mountaineering isn't the route, it's rushed progression. And the cost is real. At best, you are rescued, activated PLB, lifted by a helicopter from a cliff, with your name in the news. At worst, there is no rescue.
We spent years learning in New Zealand, tramping first, then climbing, grade 1, grade 2, grade 2 plus. And when it was the time for the next step, we didn't chase the most famous mountain. We chose the one that we were ready for.
This is the south ridge of Mount Travers, our first Alpine Grade 3. Something to test our decisions, not our muscles.
I was standing in a cold, narrow notch, staring at the wall we were about to climb. The crux of the entire mission. This was our first real step beyond what we had done before. On paper, it wasn't hard. Just 2 simple lines in the guidebook. 2 pitches, rock climbing, grade 10 to 12, 30 meters each, and an awkward 5-meter step.
Well, you say, that's nothing. That's right. You will not find routes lower than grade 14 in a decent climbing gym. Indeed, it was nothing. Nothing extreme, except for the drop. Hundreds of meters down on both sides, and a haunting silence. For some reason, it felt heavy. Not because of the difficulty, it was the place. Our first proper alpine rock route. Cold, in the shade, and somehow colder inside. My brain didn't want to move.
I can't believe we managed to waste 45 minutes in that notch. We triple-checked everything, then checked it again, anchors, gear, cameras, anything just to delay that first step. Once you step onto that wall, you don't step back, you just climb it, because the hardest move wasn't on the rock, it was the first step forward.
Why Mount Travers? Let's be honest. It's not Mount Cook, it's not even inspiring. No one flies across the world for Mount Travers. Nelson Lakes are beautiful, but not glamorous. And we live in Auckland. That changes everything.
Flying south sounds simple, until you start adding up the costs. Airfare, extra luggage, overweight fees, a rental car sitting idle in a car park while you are away climbing. $1,000 per person for one weekend. At that point, it stops being adventure, it becomes insanity. Driving is cheaper, but not easy. 8 hours to Wellington, midnight ferry, 4 hours of broken sleep in a ship's dining room chair, then another day of driving.
By the time you reach the trailhead, you're like a squeezed lemon. And every climber knows the rule: just don't die on the approach. Well, it's been rightly said, what is already dead may never die. We weren't just choosing a mountain to climb. We had to play the hand we were dealt. We wanted a grade 3 that was real, sustained scrambling, proper exposure, a couple of good alpine rock pitches, enough to stretch us, not enough to break us. And Mount Travers was the right move.
I woke up because the car stopped. Livestock. A very New Zealand traffic delay. They weren't in a hurry. We were. We had a 10:30 a.m. water taxi across Lake Rotoiti. Missed that, and it's a 9-kilometer detour around the lake before the real walking even begins. And we were already exhausted.
We made it to the Kirby jetty with an hour to spare. We took a nap in the car instead of breakfast. No rest for the wicked. I wish we could have lain down outside. The weather was so beautiful, but sandflies owned that beach.
We woke up just in time. The boat was ready. We took a melon with us, our gourmet Alpine treat. Hamish, the skipper, cheerful as ever, loaded us like he had done it 1,000 times before, which he probably had.
Oh, so I had a go at him. I said, "Hey, buddy, not here. There's families on the beach and stuff." And I'm like, "No, I don't have a problem with the naked body. I just think there's a place for it, and it's not walking down that launching ramp."
His stories are always a gem. 20 minutes later we were dropped at Coldwater. The smelly hut was buzzing with trampers.
We arrived to Coldwater Hut. We had a little break after driving the whole night and crossing the Cook Strait. And that's when the real pressure started. 23 kilometers up the upper Travers Valley. 7 to 8 hours of steady movement. And suddenly, we didn't want to move at all. We sat there, eating melon, filming, chatting, procrastinating.
So it's around 22 kilometers ahead of us, relatively flat ground. Hopefully we're getting to the upper Travers hut early enough today.
I wish we had had breakfast at Kerr Bay. Another hour gone.
Fatigue does that. It makes comfort sound intelligent. We even considered staying the night at Coldwater to start fresh tomorrow. That's how it begins. The brain doesn't like the unknown. It negotiates, it bargains. It produces very reasonable excuses.
But New Zealand weather doesn't care about reasonable excuses. Rain was forecast for the following day. If we wasted today, we wasted tomorrow. Not without hesitation, we stood up and started walking.
Well, this is quite a relatively easy track to walk. I know that people are going this as part of Te Aroa Trail, and somewhere there should be a 1,000-kilometer mark from the start of the Te Aroa Trail. So we've just passed Coldwater Hut. There will be Upper Travers Hut that we're heading to, but there's also gonna be John Tate Hut. The walk up the Travers Valley started as quite an exciting endeavor. You could logically divide the approach into 4 natural sections, 4 side valleys cutting into the ridge and leading to other destinations. So it's been 1.5 kilometers since we started this trail. So flat ground, good as gold, going through the pleasant bush. It's rain forecasted for this evening, so we hopefully gonna get there before the rain starts. And then there, the Upper Travers Hut. The track is almost a highway for the Te Aroa walkers and day hikers. It's mostly flat at first, then gradually uphill, and then more and more uphill. So it's been a relatively covered, sheltered, flat track with a little bit of ups and downs. Now we could see in a little opening in the forest, we can see the Mount Travers. That's what we are tackling in hopefully the day after tomorrow. But today we need to still cover a lot of walking. I start feeling tired, just mainly because I didn't really sleep last night because we were driving.
Soon, you've realized that all those cool swing bridges and lovely views don't excite you anymore. You are just tired. 23 kilometers sound manageable on paper. In reality, it's a slow drain. The body keeps moving, but the exhaustion starts in the toes. Then it climbs, slowly. And once it reaches your head, then the willpower thins out, and your mind lowers the bar. The reality was simple. We had started tired. That was the mistake.
We covered 11 kilometers now, and we have maybe 11 more to go if we want to make it to Upper Travers. We will definitely feel tired by the end of this walk. Our backpacks aren't super heavy, so this time we are taking into account all our learnings from previous trips, and we weighed everything we could and tried to limit the amount of garbage we are carrying on our shoulders every freaking time.
By the time we reached John Tate Hut, our fuel tank was empty. The original plan had been to go further to position ourselves better for the next day, but the body had already made its decision. At this time, it had given up.
So given the fact that tomorrow rain starts from roughly midday and it's going to be nasty in the second half of the day, we decided to split our approach today and stay at this lovely John Tate Hut. And that's a lovely spot, and we met really cool people, just had conversations about everything, including politics. And yeah, that's a very comfortable hut. Anyone could come and just enjoy simply the nature of the Upper Travers River. Tomorrow we will continue to the Upper Travers Hut, which would be just a 3-hour walk.
An ice-cold plunge in the Travers River helped. Perhaps the current carried away some of the frustration, the disappointment of losing the argument with a tired body. The hut was busy. Half a dozen trampers cooking, talking. Who are you? Where from? How is the walk?
Evenings in huts are different. Once the outer layers soften, people begin to open up. Why they left the city? Why they needed distance? What they're running from? Relationship strain, loneliness, a life that feels off course. Things rarely said out loud. There, with no phone signal and no future together, people speak freely. By morning, everyone disappears back to their own direction. Hut therapy, that's what we call it.
Outside the hut, a faint wind moved down the valley. The forecast had mentioned rain. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make you keep thinking about the next day.
We are ready to leave John Tate Hut. We slept a good night there. That was a very good decision to not kill ourselves on the approach.
That's right.
And just rest here after a 15-kilometer walk from the cold water hut. That was a really great company. We had hot dinner, a really good night's sleep, and then hot breakfast. And now we are ready to hit the track for other 7 kilometers to Upper Travers Hut. Yeah, it's right in time before the rain, so we hope we will stay fully dry. And then tomorrow we will have our mission of this trip, traversing of Mount Travers.
The morning felt slow. Stiff ankles and tired legs reminded us of the day before. The grey sky made it easier to lower expectations. It almost gave us a mental excuse to turn the day into just a short walk to Upper Travers Hut.
And we were grateful for this extra time. One more chance to recover before the key climbing day.
We are walking for 40 minutes and we covered 2+ kilometers, and you start feeling that gain of elevation. It's definitely a harder bit, those 7 kilometers, way harder than first 15 kilometers from Cold Water Hut to John Tate Hut.
The trek wasn't demanding. It felt like a well-maintained dog highway for the Te Araroa walkers. This is New Zealand tourism. No shopping malls, no city tours, just space and silence. Pure, real, beautiful.
Okay, we took a little bit of a detour, but it was the wrong way. And there were two little paths, one was going up, one was going down. And I think the one going down goes to falls, and that's not where we need to go. We need to go up.
The sky began to clear. By the time we reached the hut, the south ridge stood in full view. Massive, wild, unfriendly. The calm mindfulness of the valley vanished. Anxiety replaced it. The ridge was no longer a picture in a guidebook. It was real.
We made it to the upper Travers hut. That was a short and very brisk walk. Took us 2.5 hours to cover 7 kilometers and gain 400 meters from the John Tate hut. This valley is just stunning. The views are awesome, and we will have a really great day in the hut. Feels like there's not going to be much rain. I don't know why the forecast keeps changing, but it's life.
It is hard to relax when the next day carries weight. We checked the gear again and again. The map looked optimistic. In reality, distances grow when you carry them on your back. The plan had been to traverse the mountain, descend via Summit Creek, regain 400 meters back to Upper Travers, and repeat the entire valley walk the following day.
On paper, it made sense. In reality, it felt absurd. So we made a decision. We would sacrifice comfort, no small light climbing packs. We would ascend fully loaded and go straight back to John Tate hut after completing the traverse. The body demanded a short exit. The brain resisted the weight. Anxiety rose. Sunset didn't calm it amplified it.
Were we making a wise decision? Or was it a foolish compromise? Lack of experience always charges a fee, and tomorrow we would find out the price.
The alarm went off at 5 a.m. Headlamps on red. Sleeping bags packed quickly and quietly. Out of the bunk room, jet boil on. Boiling water slowly turned dehydrated porridge into breakfast. The horizon shifted from black to grey. Last gear check, then outside.
We have left the hut. We stayed for 1 hour longer to allow rocks to dry a little bit more, because it was a very wet night. It was raining for a couple of hours, so the grass is wet and the rock is wet and slippery. But we're hopeful that we will get good conditions today.
It was quiet. The valley felt still. The climb to the saddle was a steady slog, 500 vertical meters. No conversation. We both knew the task was simple. Move. It was a clear day. We drank as much as we could from the streams before leaving the track. We knew we would run out of water somewhere along the ridge.
I want to introduce you to a donkey. A donkey loves carrying lots of extra weight and was carrying 2.5 liters of water for an hour from the bottom where the hut was. Well, the donkey read somewhere that this will be a dry route, but here it is, a stream of fresh water, and you're welcome to get all your water supply for a day from here.
At the Travers saddle we left the track. From here on it was ours. The south ridge stretched long ahead of us. And longer than expected. Trip reports made it sound short, as if the deep notch appeared almost immediately. it didn't. The scramble dragged on. Loose rock, uneven blocks, heavy packs shifting on the shoulders. The helicopters didn't help. One flew just before the reach. Every time you hear rotor blades in the mountains, your mind feels the rest. Rescue? Evacuation? Something gone wrong? We had no intention of being that story, so we kept moving.
The reach felt endless, the packs heavier with every step. Would we be able to climb properly with this weight? First times always carry that question. You don't know what it will look like until you are there. The sun was already strong, but it didn't warm the cold knot forming low in the stomach. The notch was ahead, and once in that gap there would be no debate. Just the wall.
What do you think?
It is a little bit scary, for sure. It's a sheer face of rock, with some cracks. Whew!
I was standing in a freezer-cold, narrow notch, staring at the wall we were about to climb, the crux of the entire mission. Our first real step beyond what we had done before. Once you pass it, reality splits. Before and after, nothing else exists. Just your breath, your hands, your feet. 3 points of contact, always 3. Silence hung in the air. Light gusts of wind reminded me of the empty space below my feet and the price of a fall. The first pitch looked obvious. Clean cracks and solid granite. Good holds, good gear. 1 move, 2 moves, 3. The cracks drifted right. I kept following. Too focused, too committed. The angle steepened. A large bulge blocked the way. A move I didn't have a skill for. My feet were shaking, hands trembling, heart pounding. I had climbed somewhere I shouldn't have. Down climb? Looking down felt worse than looking up. My mind raced. This was the edge, the ceiling of my ability. If I were ready, I could reverse this. If not, ambition had pushed me too far. Breathe in, breathe out. 1 meter down. 2 meters, 5, removing protection as I went, slowly. From above the turn was obvious, from below almost impossible to see. 1 cam to secure the move. Turn left, traverse, relieve. I knew that. I was ready.
Climbing is not a solo performance, unless you are actually climbing solo. The real question now was, would I be able to follow? It's not just about strength, it's not about pushing harder, it's about the nervous system, tolerance for exposure, coordination, concentration. Following is different from leading, but it still demands physical and mental control. And the mental part? That's the most of the climb. No one told me it was impossible, so I went and did it. What I've always struggled with is removing protection from awkward cracks while hanging on a rope on vertical rock. It looks easy from below. Well, it isn't. The cracks was the exact turn Vitaly had just corrected. The rope dragged, pulling me off balance. A small step before the traverse felt bigger than it should have. There is no more place for analysis paralysis. Breathe out, commit, move, trust the hold, pull, shift weight, stand. Though it's teamwork, I still have to climb it myself. Once past the turn, it eased.
At the belay we swapped gear and rolls. The cycle repeated. This time it felt mentally easier. The slope was slightly less vertical. Even a 5 to 10 degree change makes a difference. But it was too early to relax. The rock turned crunchy. Small and medium-sized blocks shifted under my hands. Not the best feeling when a hold comes off as a gift from the mountain. I was grateful the crack kept drifting left, away from Angelica. Even small rocks bite hard when they fall. Grab, breathe, push, move, repeat. Methodical, systematic. Protection placed where it made sense. I wished the ropes were little longer than 30 meters. I stopped about 5 meters below the obvious edge, the one leading to the so-called black moss slab. Not ideal. I had to build a belay there in a hollow pocket of loose rock. It took longer than I expected. Finding solid anchor placement was harder than I thought.
Climbing!
Second pitch wasn't dramatic, just steady work. Clouds began rising from the humid valley below. It was nearing midday. Time felt tighter, but mountains don't accept rushing. They are not in a hurry. They don't care. They will be there even 1,000 years later. Step, grab, pull, move, repeat. Careful with each hold. Balance matters.
The remaining 5-meter step technically didn't require protection. Reports suggested the black moss slab above the near 300-meter drop could be extremely slippery. A fall there would not forgive. We decided to keep the rope, just in case. Once past the edge, the perceived danger faded. Angelica walked across calmly, dragging the rope behind her. The Crux felt over.
We climbed the wall. Those 60 meters from the notch, they were quite intimidating. We did 2 pitches and stupid 3 meters in the end. Well, it's not the same as climbing on a crag on Sunday morning, where you're relaxed and you have 15-20 meter wall. This one was very committing. That felt like great Alpine 3, a big exposure, big drops on both sides, southeast, southwest ridges. Yeah, and check out the views right behind me. They are awesome. We have 300 meters to gain, and then it will be summit of Mount Travers.
The sun was out, the weather was kind. We relaxed. That was premature. Most trip reports barely mentioned the section before the summit. It sounded like an easy walk. But this is where the mistake happened, when the mind drops its guard. The black moss was dry, surprisingly solid, no real issue there. But the rising rock band above looked confusing. From below, there seemed to be no obvious passage. We chose a gully. That was the mistake. The gully narrowed. The walls closed in a steep chimney. Loose blocks wedged between walls. Everything unstable, everything whispering one word: rockfall. By the time I realized it was wrong, I was already high in it. 4 points of contact, no protection. Backing down felt worse than continuing. The only way out was up. And then it shifted. A large block fell through my hands. The sound was violent. Rock shattered down the chimney. I screamed.
From below, I saw blocks racing towards me, like headlights in a dark tunnel. There was no predicting their path, no outrunning them. I pressed myself against the wall, turned my back, let the pack take the hit. Seconds stretched. Too long. Large blocks shot past, slamming into the opposite wall and continuing downwards. Smaller rocks struck my helmet and backpack. It wasn't pleasant, and it wasn't smart. I was standing in the fall line. That mistake could have cost us. We just got lucky.
At the top of the chimney, I finally saw it. A clean scramble line skirting the rock bend. Obvious, safer. I had just missed it. I redirected Angelica. 10 minutes later, we stepped onto the final summit ridge.
The remaining slog up the scree to the summit felt long and irritating. My elbow hurt, the only part of my body hit by the rockfall. Fatigue settled in. We hadn't eaten much because of the stress. It had already been a long day. There was no visible excitement left, just endless boulder hopping along the long summit ridge. And the summit still felt far away, another 150 vertical meters above us.
The summit of Mount Travers is simply a large flat rock in the middle of the long summit ridge, with a broken wooden pole cemented into it.
At the top of Mount
Travers! Our first Alpine Grade 3.
There is no dramatic triangular marker for photos, just rock. But the views felt earned.
I've just completed the Alpine Grade 3 route. It's Mount Travers in Nelson National Park. And some bits of it were definitely challenging. I like stretching myself a bit more than usual, so this is a growth, a learning curve, exploring something more difficult every time. Actually, in terms of the distance covered and the elevation gained, that was not a big issue. But we had one technical section of 60 meters where it's Alpine Grade 3 of rock climbing with rope and harnesses and protection, so typical tread climbing. And some of those sections were challenging, so we've covered maybe 60, 70 meters of a wall from the notch, and that was epic for sure. And then we got lost a little bit because we didn't traverse to the left where we should have, but we're here on top. We are unharmed and happy. Just lost an extra hour trying to navigate. After traversing Mount Travers, we are going down that valley to sleep in John Tate Hut.
We were now playing against the clock. From the position of the sun, it was obvious we would be walking in the dark. It was past 3 p.m. and there was a still long descent down the ridge. We still had to descend the bluffs of the Summit Creek and fight through thick bush below the tree line. There was no marked track there. You pushed through the dense forest skirting waterfall drops just to reach the upper Travers track. That was waiting for us.
Right now, we needed to keep moving along the summit ridge, heavily cut near the end before it dropped into loose rock and scree. From above, the basing looked intimidating. We didn't take chances. Careful route finding, conservative foot placement, A twisted ankle here meant a night on the ridge, a glorious defeat. The sun dropped fast toward the Tasman Sea. Blue turned to gold, gold turned to pink, pink turned to shadow.
Then we realized we were exhausted. And still far from where Summit Creek meets the Upper Travers Track. The alpine vegetation was remarkable, unique, beautiful, but we barely noticed. The clock in our heads merged with our heartbeat, a quiet countdown. There's no drama in getting stuck in the forest at night.
The drama starts when fatigue lowers your attention, when tired judgment ignores danger. That's when injuries happen, and with them hypothermia, too many stories and a few hundred meters short of the shelter. By 10 p.m. in complete darkness, we broke out of the bush and reached the washed-out bridge over Summit Creek. Empty.
We ate our last muesli bars, drank straight from the creek, then began the final 90-minute drag toward John Tate Hut. We were exhausted, but now it was simple, one step at a time. Around 11:30 p.m. I pushed open the hut door. Sleeping bags out, we collapsed on the bunks. Done.
We slept the last night at John Tate Hut. We completed our loop of traversing Mount Travis quite late. It was after 9 p.m. So it was complete darkness when we walked in, but we still had an awesome night of sleep and rest. And now we are full of energy to complete our last 15 kilometers walking out to meet our Captain Hamish, who will take us across Lake Rotoiti so we make it on time to our ferry. One of the eternal storylines speaks of a traveler, the hero, who leaves home, faces the unknown, gathers something of value, and returns.
Many chase glamorous summits. Few choose the right one for them.
But what did we bring back? Clarity. In the mountains, the most important thing isn't how high you climb.
It is knowing when you are ready and when you are not.